Welcome to another episode of Daniel Goes Outside. I'm currently at Contemporary Calgary, which is the repurposed Science Center. I think I've been to the Science Center when it was here a couple of times, but I've never actually been here since the Science Center moved to another part of Calgary. I am here attending BSides Calgary 2026. This is their 10th conference they've put on. If you've never heard of BSides, it is a community-focused cybersecurity event that has a ton of different local chapters, and there's one in Calgary. The Calgary BSides event is a 2-day event, and I am attending it. And it's really weird because this is like one of the few times that I've attended a conference where I haven't traveled for it. Well, I traveled for it, I drove here, but I didn't get on a plane, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, this should be a good conference. It's 2 days of cybersecurity fun.
I'm all checked in to BSides Calgary, and this is my badge. It's actually one of the more unique badges I've gotten. Apparently it's like 3D printed.
Well, day one of BSides Calgary has come to a close, and holy smokes, was it a lot of fun and very informative. I attended a ton of different sessions, and I feel like I learned so much. I went to the keynote, and the keynote was really interesting because it was talking about like the history of how the internet started in Calgary and how like the University of Calgary somehow had like a contract with DARPA, or not really with DARPA, but with like the United States government, so it allowed them access to DARPA. And then eventually the Calgary Unix community ended up being the only other place that was able to get internet in Calgary. So like way back when, if you were trying to get on the internet in Calgary, you had to go to the University of Calgary or to the Calgary Unix group, which it was really cool to find out about that because I honestly had no idea. One of the really interesting takeaways from that keynote was to not treat cybersecurity as good versus bad, but treat it more as an engineering problem because it's just a problem that needs a solution. It's not necessarily good versus bad. One of the other sessions I attended was about how LLMs are being leveraged to create malware, and effectively it has turned script kiddies into malware developers in less than 2 hours. Now, the LLMs won't spit out pure malware, but they will spit out enough things that will get you close, and when you connect the pieces with another tool or something like that, then you actually have your malware. That's actually how LameHug functions, where LameHug is just this malware, or whatever the heck you want to call it. It's by APT28, also known as Fancy Bear. Their basic tactic is that it's using Hugging Face and just like a basic LLM on Hugging Face, and it's querying it to make just a random script that's very basic, so it doesn't trip any flags, and it's like normal sysadmin activities, so nothing gets triggered with it. And then what it does is it puts that into like program data, and which, because everyone has read write to program data, and puts it there, then runs a different program to like actually grab that. And it's really interesting how it functions, but also very scary because how are you going to detect on that? And really the only way to detect on that is like behavior, machine learning, as well as rules. Also, another really cool session that I attended was about creating a honeypot in the OT network, and not just creating something where on the surface it looks like it's a normal device that would live in the OT network, but actually thinks and breathes kind of, well, not really thinks, but like, oh, kind of, but it functions and kind of adapts as if it was an actual like item in the OT network, be that like a Modbus thing or like a PLC or an HMI. And like if you were to scan it on the surface level, it looks like it's a legit PLC or something. And if you try to like modify the Modbus registers with the PLC, I don't even know if the terminology is correct because I don't know all the ins and outs of the OT kind of stuff, but the effective point is that it's able to mimic that behavior, making it really hard to detect that it's a honeypot. And it's really cool because if you put that into the OT network, it's not breaking your OT network, it's just sitting there waiting for an attacker. And if attackers scanning for it, they may find it and think that it's an actual PLC, and they'll actually make changes. And it's got enough logic in it because it's a Python script, where I'm guessing that there's a bunch of if this then that's in there, where it's like if they modify this specific register, it will like mimic as if there's like a pump turning on, and it will actually give back values as if it was real. And it's really cool because I didn't know honeypots didn't do that. Like, I know they just sit there and they like can just wait for you to try to poke at them and then they'll trigger an alert. But this one like does so much more, which is really cool. The other really cool thing with it is that it is going to be open source and it's going to be released on GitHub, but it's not out yet because the presenter wants to do another talk about it before he releases it publicly on GitHub. All in, day one was a heck of a lot of fun. Tomorrow is going to be day 2, and I will be back for the second day, which is also the final day for BSides Calgary 2026. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I got a BSides shirt, which on the back of it is just all of the sponsors. And if you flip it over, then it just says BSides on the front, Calgary 2026. And then there's a BSides sticker and a BSides 10-year pin and a BSides tote bag. I think that's what it's called. Also, I got this yellow thing, which if you look at the yellow thing, it's got like teeth on it and stuff. Well, so does the badge. It's like one of those toys where you can like spin the wheel inside of the other wheel and you have like a pen in those little holes and you can make like weird art and stuff, or like a pencil or whatever. That's super cool. Well, today is day 2 of BSides Calgary and it is the final day. I have a bunch of talks lined up that I'm going to attend and it's going to be a great day. One of the coolest rooms that they're having sessions in is called the Dome, which is the thing like right there. And I think that used to be the planetarium back when it was a science center. But it had been so many years since I've been here when it was the Science Center that I don't fully remember what it was, but like, that's super cool. It's a really cool room. Day 2 of BSides Calgary starts now, and I'm gonna go attend some sessions. Day 2 has now come to a close, and holy smokes, was it a heck of a lot of fun. I ended up learning a ton of things. I attended the opening keynote today, and it was really interesting because it covered how BSides Calgary got started, as well as how other conferences kind of get going and the challenges that they face, which is really informative. One of the talks I went to was about resiliency in your incident response plan. And one of the main takeaways from that was just keep your response plan simple. Like, keep it as one page. If a trauma intake form can be one page, your incident response plan, at least your action items, can be a single pager rather than multiple different pages. Like, don't get hung up on all the details. One of the talks I went to was all about how you can use BitLocker as like a form of ransomware, which was always a theory that I had because a while back, I don't know, 4 years or so, I wrote a PowerShell script, which effectively was kind of a BitLocker ransomware, where what it would do is it would delete all the protectors for BitLocker, and then it would relock BitLocker and store the key into the TPM only, and then it would clear the TPM and reboot the system. Now, the flaw with that is you have no way of getting the actual BitLocker key or knowing what the password is, and also there was no custom like ransomware message. But the talk I went to actually covered how, not really how to like exfiltrate the key, but how you could change a BitLocker password similar to what I was doing, and also how to change the BitLocker recovery message so that once the computer reboots, you get a custom message, which is really cool. One of the talks I went to was about how to hide your C2 server, where you can leverage Cloudflare and a VPS and effectively hide the communication between the VPS, and which is your C2, and the actual endpoints using Cloudflare, which is really cool. An interesting talk that I attended was about how someone became an accidental incident responder, which kind of hit home a little bit because it was similar to some of the experiences that I've had to deal with. And they were talking about kind of what they had to deal with in terms of an incident and what they learned. So it was really refreshing to hear similar things that I've dealt with from someone else, and also that they learned similar things that I did, which is pretty cool. All in, BSides Calgary was a heck of a lot of fun. I feel like I have learned so much and still have so much to learn. There was a talk about evading EDR that went a little bit over my head. Like, I understood some of the basics that they were talking about, but some of the things they were talking about, like DLL loading and stuff like that, went over my head. There's still so much I don't know, but there's still so much I can learn, which is really awesome. But yes, BSides Calgary 2026 was a heck of a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. If you are in cybersecurity or interested in cybersecurity, you should definitely check out BSides, as there may be a local conference in your area. And if you're in Calgary, check out BSides Calgary, as I'm pretty sure they're going to be doing another conference next year. Whether it's at Contemporary Calgary or it's somewhere else will remain to be seen. I will also have a blog post linked below, which will go into a little bit different details than what I covered in this video about my experience at BSides Calgary 2026. Feel free to check that out. And in the comments below, let me know, have you ever been to a BSides conference and how was it? And yeah, that pretty much sums up this video. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to have an epically awesome day. Bye.